Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay at the back there? More or less. Okay, excellent. Let's also test this. Can you hear me okay at the back there? Yes? No? Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Shall we go ahead without the mic? Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. I'm still holding this because we need this for the streaming. You can't hear it, okay. Okay, how about now? Check. Okay, excellent. So, welcome to this is really weird. Welcome to ProductTank London, April 2023. And thanks everyone for coming. I know it's raining outside, so we really appreciate you coming today. And yeah, thank you for being here. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, ProductTank is the world's largest community for product people and by product people. And we do have a couple of founders of Mind the Product here. So that could be your personal challenge to network with them today and find them here in the audience. They're somewhere there, just a hint. Excellent. There are multiple ways of how you can get involved with ProductTank. The main ones are highlighted on this slide, so you can speak at one of the ProductTank events if you're interested. We do have a form on our website and also on our meetup page, so you can fill that one out and then we'll contact you if it's a good match. You can also host or sponsor one of the ProductTank events, like Pando is doing today. So if you're interested, also please reach out. You can also write for our blog on mindtheproduct.com. There's a form that you can fill out and submit your topic. So please go ahead and submit something that you'd like to write about. And finally, we have a free Slack community. It has become free, I think, earlier this year. So it's a great opportunity to join our amazing community of people on Slack and just talk to experts in the field, which is an amazing place to network as well. Excellent. So our topic today, as all of you know, is product management careers. But before we start, and before I introduce our speakers today, I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Pando, and invite Ben, Chief Strategy Officer, on stage. Over to you, Ben.
Hey, thank you all for coming out. That echo is kind of weird. Let me ask a question. Does anybody have any idea how many ProductTank London members there are? Anybody have a guess? 1,000? Any others? 10,000? That's it. That's it. And it didn't even take James. I know James could have guessed it. But thank you all for coming out here. This is a great thing for you to be able to do. ProductTank London is amazing. It's the biggest one. It's the one I've always wanted to come to, and I just happened to be here tonight. So it's awesome to be here with you. Is anybody here using Pando? More people should be using Pando. That's my pitch, all right? We do a lot of different things. Pando is a great platform. It's built for you all to build better products. There's a couple of QR codes over here. If you want to get started with Pando, it's free. So there is a version of Pando that's free. If you scan this QR code over here, you can double the MAUs that are free until it starts to get into a paid tier. We're also doing a lot of product-led certifications. So there's a product-led certification course you can get for free. It's normally $250, I believe, US. I don't know what that equates to in GBP. And we also have there are a couple of other certification courses that are there. These are free if you scan this QR code. So at least take a picture of this QR code if you want to take this class so you don't have to pay for it. Enjoy the pizza, enjoy the beer, enjoy the panel. It's a great panel. And thank you all for letting us sponsor, and thank you for coming together.
Thank you, Ben. We'd also like to thank JCC for hosting us here tonight. If you'd like to learn a bit more about what JCC does, feel free to reach out to people at the front desk. They will tell you more about it. Excellent. We'll be using Slido, as always, for questions. So feel free to scan the QR code in here and start asking your questions. And you can also upvote the existing questions. And I'll have this slide up a bit later as well. So if you don't manage to scan it now, you'll do it later. Cool, excellent. Ready? Before I introduce our speakers, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Iryna. I'm a product manager at a company called HandsHQ, and I'm also one of the ProductTank organizers. So you've probably seen me here a lot and probably tired of my face, but I'll be curating and moderating the event today. So I'm really excited. And our first speaker today is Pippa. Pippa is a product leader and coach, and I personally loved her talk at the last Mind the Product conference last year. It is amazing, so I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. So please welcome Pippa on stage.
Oh, how do I use this one? Yeah, this one, up, down, or?
Yeah, that one.
No, wrong way. Excellent, yeah. Good start. Hi everyone, I'm Pippa Topp. It's a real pleasure to be here. I can't remember who I was just saying, I actually did my first ProductTank on the first remote ProductTank there was when lockdown kicked in. So it's lovely to be doing one in person today. So it's quite a buzz. As Iryna said, I spoke at Mind the Product last year. It was possibly the biggest, most exciting moment of my career. And when I was asked what I would like to talk about, I immediately thought, oh shit, I don't know. And really, I really struggled with it because ultimately I just wanted to be really honest. I wanted to hopefully resonate with that incredible audience who was sitting in the Barbican. And I decided to try and address something that has bothered me for years about product management. Because it's a big job, and sometimes it can feel really overwhelming. There is so much to learn and fail at, and sometimes I would find I had this niggling voice in my head that says, you're not a proper product manager. And what was really interesting is loads of other people seem to feel that way too. And if they didn't have that niggling voice in their own head, they were directing it towards their product leader and thinking, we're not doing product properly, or this organization doesn't do product properly. And yet, I've been working in product and tech now for 15 years, and I look back at my career and it is made up of brilliant experiences, working with brilliant people, learning some really interesting stuff. And I realise now that these little glimpses of great experiences build up over my career and bring me to where I am now. And those little glimpses I call pockets of brilliance. Small pockets or bubbles in an organisation or team where we do some things really well. And it's not all the things all the time, but some things really well that make a really positive impact to the customer or the team or the organisation. And these small pockets or bubbles build up over time like a patchwork quilt. And each patch in that quilt will look and feel different depending on the environment it was made. And sometimes that little patch can feel really small and inadequate when you look around where you're working. But then when you add it together with all the other patches of your experience, it actually adds to the strength and beauty of the fabric. A pocket of brilliance could look like your team keeping the voice of the customer at the centre of the problems they try to solve. It could be your product team coming together and workshopping problems, listening to each other, being really vulnerable. Or it could be your whole product and tech function celebrating learning over delivery milestones. During the talk, I went into what makes up a pocket of brilliance. I spoke about how values, what I call the core product values, can be used as a guide on how we navigate product in our organisations, how we can learn capabilities, of which there are very many in product management, and how we can apply those flexibly, how we can build relationships with people, built on trust and safety to really elevate the work we're doing. And potentially, most importantly, recognise the context we're in and how that affects how we do product. But with all good concepts, the proof is really in the application. And so I was keen to try and share with you all how to actually apply this in real life and not leave people feeling either frustrated by the idealism or that it just can't be applied practically. What I really enjoy about putting this together is making sure it is flexible, and you can use it to approach how you might want to develop your whole team if you're a product leader, or indeed use it for personal development in your product management career, or you might even not want to apply it to product at all. For example, I had my first ever golf lesson the other day, I know, and you can think about how you can build up any new capability in this way. I'm not going to spend any time really talking about the people side today. I'm going to focus more on the capabilities, and hopefully that most of you might have picked up one of these. It's a little handout that I'm going to talk through. If you don't have one, I will have the slides up, and there's a few more in the back, and if you're online, there's a PDF available, and all the slides will follow on. So if you've got one of these handouts, it should say Pockets of Brilliance on the front. And you can open it up to this first page here, which says goal setting and context. And at the top it says, what is success for me? Now, before you start all mentally answering the questions and filling in the boxes, I would like to ask you a question. And if you feel comfortable, you may put up your hand. How many of you would say or describe yourself as ambitious? Great, one very confident hand went straight up. I love it. Now, it's really interesting because I notice more men than women put their hand up. And this is something I notice in coaching a lot, which is a lot of the women I coach, they say, oh, I'm not really ambitious, or they apologise if they are ambitious. And I am very proudly ambitious, and I will tell you why. Because if we look at the definition of what ambition means, it's a drive and determination to succeed. But what is success? Success is subjective. What I might deem as successful might be totally different from what you deem successful. And so really when we think of ambition, it's a drive and determination to succeed on our terms. What success is for me. Now, an example I like to use here is my sister. I'm the youngest of 3 girls, and my eldest sister works in emergency planning. And she was working for the NHS doing emergency planning and was a bit burnt out after COVID, as you can imagine, and she was looking for a new role. And she was offered 2 roles at the same time. She was offered sort of a big fancy title for emergency planning. I'm not familiar with the world, so bear with me. But it was a fancy title for a big mobile company. She'd get a company car, she'd get a seat on the leadership team. But with that would come longer hours, she'd have to be in the office. On the other hand, there was another job she was offered. It didn't come with a really fancy title or a fancy company car. It was remote. She wasn't going to have to work 60, 70 hours a week, but it was less money. And at first, she was really wanting to take the first job because she said, I always wanted to be successful. And then we talked about what success really meant to her. And quickly it became apparent that actually the second job was an obvious choice. Fewer hours, she'd be working from home, which meant she'd get more time with her kids, and also meant she could get the dog she'd always wanted. It's a gorgeous dog, by the way. So that's what I mean when I say, think of what success means for you. Now, in coaching, I go into what your values are and how you align that. But for now, you can just think about all the different things that are important to you that determine success. The next question is, what is success for me in my context? So if you've got that big goal of where you want to go, and then you look at where you are now and you think, actually, I can't achieve this in this job or this organisation or this location. You might need to change your context. But before you all walk out of here going, right, that's it, Pippa's told me I need to quit my job and I need to go and change my context, I would say have a look at your context first. Ask yourself the questions, who is impacting my context? What are those factors that affect it? How does it affect it? Why is that important? And then start thinking, okay, so I can't take the big step here, but what can I learn in this organisation, in this role, in this context that I find myself in? And ultimately, what's the next patch on my quilt that I want to build up? Now, if you go on to the next part of your handout, is the capabilities piece. And I use this matrix by Neil Cabbage, and I recognise it's not perfect. And feel free to scribble the capabilities you feel are missing. There are some things that I feel are missing, but I also am very aware that I have not bothered to do one myself, and so I will take what someone else has done and repurpose it appropriately. But this is a capabilities matrix I tend to use to get people to effectively colour code where they feel their capabilities are, heat map them as such. So I encourage people to go, red is shit hot, like I feel super confident in this. I feel like I could stand up and teach it to someone else. And then it goes through the colours, and I won't go through all of them, right down to blue, which is, oh, I've not heard of this, I don't know this, I've never come across this, I'd be starting from scratch. And what I'd like you to do now is just take a moment, I'm not asking you to do the whole thing, but have a quick look and see if there's anything on there that you think that you'd quite like to learn or practice or master. Now, we're not going to talk too much about mastery today, but really thinking about learning and practicing, because there is a difference. And I was actually chatting to someone just before we started, which is, it's great to learn the theory, it's great to do courses, but it's in that practice that we realise how messy the product world is. So if you've all got an idea of one of those capabilities, if you turn to the back page, there are a few questions before we begin. Now, when you're undertaking any new habit, or you want to introduce something or learn something new, it's good to take maybe a little considered approach. So there are some questions in here, and I've already sort of addressed the first one around learning, practicing and mastering. Thinking about how much time you want to dedicate to this per week. Knowing what product managers' calendars are like, I'd say be realistic. And then think about what might get in the way. So again, if we want to learn something new, if we want to introduce a new habit, if we want to succeed in that, it's good to consider all the potential blockers that are going to come up and disrupt you. Next, I'd consider whether it's being done in your organisation at all, that capability. And there's a bit of a difference between being done and being done well, but for now, we're just considering being done at all. And recognising then how your context may limit you in this capability. And what I mean by that is, say, you want to choose customer research and you want to start interviewing customers, but in your context in your organisation, they've never spoken to a customer before. And for some of you, you might think that's surprising, but trust me, it still happens. Thinking about who I can learn from. Is there someone in your network or someone in your organisation that you know does this well? And before you jump into sort of messaging them straight away, I'm going to come back to this point in a moment. And who else might find this capability interesting? So if you're looking to build up this capability, who could you bring on the journey with you? Who might be supportive or interested or help you build momentum in the area you choose to grow in? Now, on the other part of this sheet is a little bit-by-bit cycle. It's remarkably similar to a build, measure, learn approach, which I'm sure you'll all be familiar with. But the first step is self-serve. Now, I mean self-serve both when you're learning and you're practicing. So if you're learning for the first time and you've come across this new capability, I really encourage you to go out and do your reading, do your homework, listen to talks, listen to podcasts, see what you can learn on your own, and then try and practice it on your own first. And what I mean by that is, again, let's use customer interviews as an example. So you've gone out, you've read Teresa Torres, you've listened to loads of brilliant podcasts, and you've watched her talks, and you're like, right, I'm gonna go and talk to some customers. Before you go and do anything else, just try it out. Try asking non-leading questions to friends and family. Try going out on the street and talking to random strangers. Give it a go before you ask for help. And the reason I say that, which is step 2, seek help, is because time is such a precious resource, and we might have an inclination to know that our friend Steve over there is brilliant at this, so I'm just going to ask him how he does it, and he can spend his time teaching me. But what we're really missing here is that's not really fair on that person. Are we going to be asking the most quality-led questions if we have no context before we've reached out? Then the rest is relatively obvious, but I will go through it anyway quickly, which is look to collaborate. See who else might be up for giving this a go with you. So that could be if you are doing customer interviews, is there someone who might be interested in doing it with you? It could also be someone outside of the product function. So I've had great results talking to someone in finance. Making friends with finance is always handy because then they get interested in what customers have to say, and they might give you a bit of budget to go and sort of entice customers to speak to you. So collaborate. Then review your work and look what mistakes you might have made, and share it. This is the best bit. This is the best bit when you've done it horribly wrong. Still share it with everyone. Start to try and gain interest and momentum in the thing you're learning. If you're introducing this into your company for the first time and you're trying it by yourself, firstly, from a development point of view, it looks amazing on your CV if you can say, oh, I'm the first person who started speaking to customers, and then we started doing customer research. But also, other people get interested, builds momentum, is really positive. And then repeat the cycle. And the key here is to start as small as possible. I was talking today with someone who wanted to really start looking at data, but the company hadn't collected any data before. She didn't know where to start. And she had all these questions, and all I said was just pick one. Just pick one question that you want to start answering and go from there. Now, if you open up your handout, you'll see a handy worksheet, which is based on values. So these are the values I believe are key to product management, are curiosity, learning, creativity, and collaboration. Now, this is a sort of bastardised worksheet from the work of Brené Brown, and also a leadership course I did about 12 years ago. And if anybody knows Dave Martin, he does these mini retros for his work, and so I've stolen a bit of that, but I want to give him full credit. So that's how I've put this together. And I've got the values here down on the left-hand side. And the next column is beliefs. So here is, how does this value help my practice? And I've put a couple of examples in there, which is going to be tricky for those who are in the room to read. So an example is, I believe that if I stay curious when I speak to a customer, I'll avoid jumping to conclusions. So that's a belief as to why this value will help your product practice. Then there's the positive behaviours. And what this means is, if I were to just observe you working, how would I know that curiosity is a value of yours? And so, for example, a positive behaviour here could be asking why one more time when you're interviewing a customer. A negative behaviour, which would suggest that you're perhaps not being terribly curious, might be passive listening or interrupting during your customer interviews. Other negative behaviours in learning, for instance, could be being defensive rather than leaning into the learning. And then the next column is around capability alignment. So we've got our values and we've picked a capability. How do you join them together so that your value actually supports the work you're trying to do in your learning? So how will I use this value to enhance my capabilities? So the example I've used here is, I'll practice my curiosity behaviours in my weekly customer interviews. So you're holding yourself accountable with a measure as well. And then lastly, having a weekly check-in, giving yourself a mini retro for personal development to really look at where you're falling down, where you need to change. So here I've put an example of, I learned I need to remove distractions when interviewing, and next time I will, and you give yourself an action to keep yourself accountable. So hopefully that has helped you frame some thinking about how to get started into developing your product capabilities and appreciating your context, using your values as a guide, and applying those capabilities flexibly. And ultimately, doing that by encouraging others to join you and building some fantastic relationships bonded by trust. And I hope you could all go and build your own pockets of brilliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pippa. Yes, we'll have the Q&A section at the end. So if you have any questions, this way. If you have any questions, please, there is a QR code here again. We also have a link for the online viewers on YouTube. Excellent. On this note, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Debbie. Debbie is a product lead at Shopify. She's also one of the top 5 product management writers or Medium, which is an amazing achievement. And welcome on stage, Debbie. Looking forward to hearing.
Okay. Will there be the Slido link again? Yes. Okay, cool. Because we're going to use the Slido for a poll, a quick poll. So yeah, if you haven't already, please scan it. I'll just show it now. Cool. The reason I want to use Slido for the poll and not just putting your hands up is because I want the people at home so that they can also vote. Awesome. So yeah, as Iryna said, my name is Debbie. If you hear an accent, it's an Indonesian accent. So I'm originally from Indonesia. I moved here only in 2015, barely speaking English back then. So please excuse if you hear any wrong pronunciation. And it's honestly unthinkable for me to be able to speak on a stage in London, which was the city of my dreams since I was 7. Anyway, it's not about me today. I'm going to talk about the different career paths in product management, and you might be already familiar with the dual career track, which is individual contributor, or usually people shorten it to IC. And people management. They don't shorten it to PM because it's going to be very confusing, especially for PMs. I'm going to talk about how it actually applies in the product management roles, how it differs, how it makes a difference in your day-to-day. Just a little bit about my career. I started about 12 years ago in Toyota, handling their digital recruitment platform, and then I co-founded a startup. I'm not gonna go through this one by one, but I wanted to show it's different industries for sure, different companies size as well. So big, small, big, small, big. And I also switch back and forth between people management and individual contributor. And yeah, as Iryna mentioned, I started writing on Medium only a year ago, and I'm honestly quite surprised that I'm already the top 5 writer. So if you want to start writing and you feel like it's daunting, I don't have an audience yet, just do it. And I started teaching on Maven as well a few months ago, which I really enjoy because I came from a family of teacher. Anyway, so this is the quick poll. Okay. Has everyone got an opportunity to... Okay, let me just go back here. If you want to scan it. Oh, I see. Okay. Cool. So the first question is, which one do you identify most with? Are you a specialist or a generalist? I think this is going to load real time.
The slide on this one because it then appears on Slido.
Okay.
So just keep it here.
Okay. Cool. Cool. This is what I pretty much expected. Next one. Which shape best describes your path into product management? A or B? Let's go back. So A is the straight line, B is the squiggly line. Cool. And next one, what is your end game aspiration? So end game as in what do you want to be retired as, like the last job, the last role before you retire? Can everyone read from the back? Do I need to read it out? Yeah, okay. Oh, it's not showing. I see, sorry. Cool, so we are definitely seeing a lot of ambition here. I would think that if you ask this question to a bunch of, I don't know, accountants, not as many of them would say that they want to become a, is there such thing as chief accounting or like chief financial officer, probably? So this is my theory. Product manager roles is like, it invites people who are ambitious, generalists, didn't feel like they fit in any other specialist roles, and are actually grateful that product management is a thing, because it wasn't really a thing like 15 years ago, right? So now we ended up in this role, and because we had been probably squiggling a little bit in our career before we found product management, now once we are in the product management path, we wanted to go up like as high as possible in product or as a founder of our own company. The talk today will talk probably more about the career path within a company, but I think some of it can still be transferable for if you want to build your own startup. Oh, the animation didn't get copied. It's okay. So this is usually how the career paths look like in a company that implements dual-track career paths. So it started as one track, which is individual contributor. You are too junior to have any options, basically. And in some companies, they have like this three, like APM, PM, and SPM. And then once you reach SPM, usually the path will branch out into two. The left one here is people management, and the title could be head of product, lead product manager, group product manager. And the right-hand side is the IC path, and the title could be principal or staff. So I use the title loosely because sometimes companies can have different titles. And then the path will merge again into one. So usually here, like in the middle path, they will say, our company values people like regardless of their career path. They're equally valued and equally compensated. But actually, at some point you have to choose, or not choose. You have to be okay to be a people manager if you want to go up beyond principal or staff, basically. I don't think I've ever heard product director that are not people manager, basically. So product director and then VP of product or CPO. So that's the path. And I've been in both sides. My last role, I was a product director, managing 12 PMs. And now I'm a product lead at Shopify, and I'm back to the IC role. And the reason I decided to make that move even though only from the title perspective, it didn't sound like a good career move, is because I realized that I enjoy being an individual contributor now, at least for now. So basically, the activities that you do as an individual contributor versus people manager, I don't want to introduce bias too much so early, but basically what I would say when I was just an ICPM, what I would say as the parts that I don't like about my job, that just gets more pronounced once you are a people manager. So I split it into like doing product versus doing management. So doing product is things like identifying problems, talking to the users, getting your hands dirty with data, collaborating with your engineers and designers to create a solution. That's what I would call doing product. And then the other side is doing management, which is talking, basically, dealing with people. And those people could be your engineers, could be your business stakeholders, could be your managers, getting buy-ins, getting alignment, motivate people, managing relationships, etc. So yeah, as a PM, even as an ICPM, you have to do both. But there is always like a slider, like what's the percentage of doing product versus doing management. And in my last role, I think for the past year of my role, I was basically doing like 95% management. And I didn't really like that. So I decided to move back as an IC. So question for the room, you don't have to put your hands up or anything. This is just a question that you can answer yourself, like which one resonates with you more? Like is it the product side or the management side? And I'm going to talk about like your options basically. So the one possible answer is that I enjoy both product and management. Then probably if you want to stay within a company, then you can go up further if you are a people manager. As you could see in the previous, like there's a branch out, but then it has to merge again. So people management would be your path if you want to progress in a company. Then a lot of people ask me, I mentored quite a few PMs as well, so they ask like, how do I get into management basically? And it's something that's not fully in your control, right? Because it depends on the company. It depends, like, if your company is growing aggressively, they hire more and more people, I think naturally you will go up with the company as a manager. But in the current economic climate, people are not hiring as aggressively, so maybe there's not much room for you to grow. Anyway, what I'm saying is, it's not always in your control, so the only thing that you can do is do your best in what's in your control, right? So it could be that you're doing all of this brilliantly already, but still there's no opportunity, then yeah, it's a different story. So tips on getting into your first management role. I would say that basically just act as a leader. Like even though you don't have the title, you don't have the salary, just act as a leader. Like one thing that I've never said in my career is it's above my pay grade. I just assume that everything is my pay grade. It's actually, I call it an illness. Like I said, I'm Asian. Like I have certain work ethics instilled to me by my ancestors. So yeah, I just never said no to opportunities. So yeah, show up as a leader. Keep expanding your scope. Like every time there is new projects, new opportunities, nobody seems to pick it up, just do it. Just some anecdotal story. So I joined Facebook September 2016. At that time, Facebook was still quite small, like I think 20% of the size of it is today. And Facebook at that time was driven also very bottom up, so you can pick up any problem you wanted, pretty much, and then just work on it. So I picked up two problems that nobody cared about at that time, which was hate speech and fake news. That was September 2016. And then November, Trump got elected. And then suddenly it was like the #1 priority of the company. They initially said, well, do we care about fake news? And then it became like the number one priority. There was like an open call, basically. Does anyone know how to solve fake news? And then I was like, well, I already had the project going. But again, at that time, I picked it up even though it wasn't sexy or anything. It's just a problem that piqued my interest and nobody seemed to care about it. Yeah, so keep expanding your scope. Think higher level, think beyond just the symptoms of the problems that you are seeing or responding very reactively to the first problem, because it might be that that's not the biggest fire that you need to put up. The fourth one, speak business, and I added this because I think product managers tend to err on the user side, like being very user-centric, customer-centric, wanting to do what's best for the users. But at the end of the day, the business is there to make money, and if they make money by solving users' problems in the best way possible, then that's great. There's an alignment there, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you have to compromise on user experience, like build an MVP that you don't agree with, for example. But again, the goal of the business is to create like a profitable business to sustain it, right? So being able to have mature conversations with your team, with your leaders about the importance of getting into like a more viable, like profitable way of doing things instead of being only user-centric, I think would get you further up in your career. And then the last one, start coaching and mentoring, because usually that's the entry point, right? You started helping people who are more junior than you. You get like the respect, the experience. So when a people manager role opens up, you will be the first one in line. The second option is if you say management sounds horrible and I want to stay in product. Is it still working? Yeah. Management sounds horrible and I want to stay in product. And there will be a ceiling for you if you want to stay within a company but doesn't want to do management. And the ceiling could be quite high. Like honestly, a product lead at Shopify gets paid quite well. So you don't have to get into people management per se if you don't like it. But there are also other end games that you can explore. So you can become a consultant, you can become a startup advisor, you can become a coach or a teacher. I guess what I'm doing now is keeping my options open. So that's why I'm starting to build like this side hustle, if you want to call it that, or my personal brand, so that I can have like an alternative, basically, if I don't want to move up in the career, like traditional career ladder within a company. And the tips there, if you do want to explore these options, is well, first of all, like this is probably also applied to the other one, which is like improve your craft. You have to be really good at what you do. The second one, start building your personal brand. This can be quite like icky or awkward, and I also don't enjoy that part so much. So just do what works for you. Like do it in a genuine way. Don't say things that you would cringe at yourself, basically. I think LinkedIn is full of people like that. And then the last one is pick a niche, because like it's a triangle, right? So the more specialized you are within product management, so you could be a platform PM, AI PM, or like industry specific, so like fintech, for example, e-commerce, whatever it is. The more specialized you are within product management, then usually you'll have more opportunities in that area. If your answer is I'm not sure, I would then suggest to choose the people management path as a general advice, as it opens more doors for you. Usually, when you're already at a certain salary, and I think from talking to friends, people generally say when you're already reaching about 100K, so you're like 95K-ish in your salary, and then you want to move to your next role. If you don't have any people management experience, usually it gets harder to get above 100K. And this is purely anecdotal. I haven't done any proper research. This is just based on talking to friends, basically. So there are lots of people like within the 90K range that are trying to get their first people management role now, basically. But what I also wanted to suggest is when you become somebody's manager, you are probably the most important factor in their career, right? And you've all had bad managers, you've had good managers. You know how much it can impact you, how good your manager is. So please don't be somebody who becomes like a people manager just to tick the box for your own career without actually genuinely caring about your team's development. So whichever path you take, this is just general advice. These are still the most sensible things you can do for your career and your life. Build your personal brand both within and outside your company, because even in the company, you still have to build visibility, right? I used to hate that. When I was at Facebook, I used to say, Facebook is not getting a good deal out of their employees because 50% of their time is actually working and the other 50% is talking about what they do. So only 50% productivity. And I hated that. I think I'm kind of accepting it now as a part of the job, because I mean, the world is noisy. The world is full of great people. If you don't talk about what you do, then nobody's going to find you. Second one, be curious. Don't just live in your own bubbles. We don't know when the bubble will burst. I know people who have worked in like great companies and they thought their job is really secure, and they got too comfortable and never did anything to expand their network or their skills, and then suddenly layoff came and they were unprepared. Like they are not sellable anymore during interviews because they never upgraded themselves. Build bridges, as in the opposite of burn bridges. Like don't burn bridges. Like even if you don't like some of your stakeholders, for example, or you don't like your boss, whatever, don't burn the bridges. Build them. Build bridges and lasting connections, both with people like above you and below you as well. You don't know where everyone will end up, so always treat everyone like respectfully. And the last one, this is one that I also need to implement myself because I'm not very good at it, is keeping a sustainable pace. Again, like product managers seem to be filled with like very ambitious people who wants to move ahead, but consistency is better than speed. There's no point of working like crazy for 5 years and then get burned out and you can't do anything else. So yeah, those are my tips. Hopefully it helps some people in the room. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So the mic isn't working anymore. How do you hear us at the back there? More or less okay? Okay, excellent. So on this note, again, a reminder to put your questions up there. We saw your feedback about the speaker, so we actioned it. Excellent. So our next speaker is James Mace. He's the co-founder and former CEO of Mind the Product, and he's going to be talking about the main failures in the mentoring industry and how to fix them. So looking forward to your talk, James. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I've got to hold the microphone up because apparently that's how we're capturing the audio, but hopefully you can all hear me regardless, and it's slightly better without the echo. Those in the cheap seats, are we good with this? Okay, we have liftoff. Which way are we going? This way. Here we go. So, building support for product people. I have a long-held opinion that the mentoring model is just not fit for purpose as we know it today. It's pretty much outdated and an awful lot has changed recently, as you may have noticed. So, quick status check. Who considers themselves to be time poor? Okay, that's a fair number. Did that get worse through the pandemic or did that get better? There we go. Okay. And how about recently with kind of funding rounds collapsing, markets collapsing? A little bit worse still? Yeah, I'm seeing a few nodding heads here and there. It's not a great situation to be in, especially if you're out there saying, I need a mentor, and everybody else around you is saying, I have no time. This is the first part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that the product role is broader now than it has ever been before. I'll talk about this in a little more detail as we go through, but to start with, let's just take a look at the tooling options that you have available to you now as a description as to how broad your job currently is. There's a lot. There's a hell of a lot, right? If you cast your mind back to the very early days of product, the primary conversations that we saw at Product Tanks were people talking about backlogs and roadmaps. It was not simplistic, but it was certainly simpler than what we see here today. And what I talk about now when I talk to product managers and I ask them what they're involved in, they talk about things like, I have input to fundraising decks, I'm looking at competitor analysis, I'm looking at our pricing strategies, I'm looking at our onboarding, I'm looking at our churn, I'm looking at some prototyping and some discovery, I'm looking at some design work, I'm deep down in the analytics, maybe even building some user guides. It's a lot. So, pace of change. Greater today than it's ever been. I think everybody's heard that quote. But I think more recently, our customers have changed more in the last 2 or 3 years than they have in the last 2 or 3 decades. The way we eat, the way we shop, the way we travel, the way we work, the way we collaborate, it is all fundamentally different. As I say, it's been a bit. Last few years, it's been a hot while. And finally, just when you thought you were coming out of the pandemic, you've got a handle on it, right? You know what we're doing now? Apparently AI has a word for you. That's going to mix things up a little bit too. So if you think it's about to slow down, you're very frickin' wrong. It's about to go faster. All this is to say, the product management role is getting broader and broader every single day. Part 2 of why I think the typical mentoring model just doesn't really work. So you want one? Sure. Everybody would like a bit of a help. Everybody would like a friendly person where they can go lean on the shoulder or have a little chat, maybe get answers to a question or two, or maybe just get some sympathy. This model doesn't work, so what else are we going to do? I mean, first let's take a quick step back into previous history. Mind the Product, 2016. We thought this mentoring thing, maybe with the Mind the Product network of people, we can do something to help here. That could be a thing. Turns out, when we surveyed the product management audience in London, 103 people were looking for a mentoring, and only 2 were able to put their hand up and say, yeah, right, I can do that. And then you look more deeply at the pool of people who actually wanted a mentor. Out of those 103, I think around 20% held the title VP or above. Now, yes, that speaks to the pressures of the job. It's a complex job. There's a lot going on. And yes, those people need support as much as everybody else. But it does give you an indication as to why this model is going to cause problems. So, first up, just stop. Stop asking for mentors. When you go to somebody and say, hey, I'd love for you to mentor me, their typical reaction on the inside is, oh, God. I've got too much on. I'm too busy. I don't have time. I'm underwater in my inbox, and we haven't even gotten to the board meeting next week and the slides I'm supposed to prepare for that. It's an unwieldy commitment. People don't like saying no to you, but they don't feel like they can say yes. So who am I, and why does my opinion have anything to bear here? Well, 2 reasons. Firstly, I was one of the co-founders, former CEO of Mind the Product. I spent about 10 years talking to product managers all around the world. I love the job. I think it's one of the most rewarding jobs in tech, but it's also one of the most challenging. So I spent an awful long time talking to product people around the world. Before that, I don't like to talk about this one quite so much. Before that, I spent 15 years as a tech recruiter. I'm really sorry. But it does mean I was really good at 2 things. Finding people who didn't want to be found and persuading them to take a call that they didn't want to take. So, this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but to solve this problem, just a little bit of your brain is going to have to give itself over to thinking like a recruiter. I know it feels a bit icky, but you're going to have to work with me here, okay? So, you can keep hold of the product management part. Think quite clearly about what problem you're trying to solve. That's good product management practice. I know this because it's Jana Basto's favourite question. So keep that product bit in there. What problem are you trying to solve? When you're looking for a mentor, why? What advice are you looking for? How do you think they're going to help you? Secondly, this is where we get to more of a recruiter mindset. Fish where the fish are. You're going to go out and find people who have helpful advice for you. Think like a recruiter. Where am I going to find the best minds for this? Where can I engage with them? Where can I have those conversations? And thirdly, think about how you're going to catch their attention. It's really easy to retweet someone's post or to like their post on LinkedIn, but honestly, as social currency goes now, it's getting a bit thin on the ground. You're going to need to think a little bit more than that. And a lot of the time, it's about making your ask relevant to their interests. Now, Pippa said earlier, do your homework, read up. That's exactly right. So as a short example, first up, if you're into product discovery and that's the area where you need help and that's the area where you're looking for support, my first suggestion would be Teresa Torres. She's awesome. Anybody here know Teresa? Yeah. Right. She's freaking great. We love Teresa. But she's also real busy and she probably gets an awful lot of requests for help. But if you've done your homework, when you ask the question, it's going to be something like, I listened to you on this podcast. You had a really interesting point about that, but I'm struggling with the challenge in this way. Do you have any wise words? More often than not, you're going to get a polite reply that guides you in the right direction. Thinking a little bit more broadly, and this one is, I think, pushing the envelope further than any of you want to go with trying to find people and build these friendships and build these relationships. But it's a cool story, so I'm going to tell it anyway. Years back, I was hanging out a little with a recruiter at Shopify who was building their early days engineering team. And he wanted the best engineers on the planet. But more than that, he wanted engineers who really cared about music. More specifically, about sharing music. So what Andre did was essentially a twofold strategy. First, he would go search the web, places like GitHub or Dribbble or whatever for designers, developers, engineers. He would go do the deep searches and find the people he really, really wanted. But when he was convinced that you were exactly the person that he wanted to hire, he then went one step deeper. And he said, if I can find this person anywhere on social, I'll probably find what kind of music they like. And maybe it's a tweet 2 months ago about a blues band and a tweet yesterday about a folk band. Brilliant. I now know you like folk and blues. Interesting. What can we do with that? Now, if you get an email from somebody that says, hey, I'm Andre, I work for Spotify, I'm interested in recruiting you. Could we have a conversation? I'm betting most of you are just going to hit delete because your inbox is full of recruiter spam, right? Andre took it to the next level. I'm Andre at Spotify. I want to talk to you so much that I made this playlist for you. Figured out what you're interested in and took 40 seconds, 60 seconds, made a quick playlist and sent it over and said, I'd love to have a chat. What do you think? His hit rate was higher than any other technical recruiter operating in Europe at that time. The guy's an absolute legend in the industry. Now, I don't expect you to go that far, but I do expect you to think a little bit more deeply. If you want the attention of Bruce McCarthy or Teresa Torres or Marty Kagan or whoever it is, think a little bit more deeply than like. Yeah? Doesn't take a huge amount, but it does take a little. Now, people have asked me over the years a few times now, what is your approach? You seem to be better connected than most. And it's true, my LinkedIn is a little out of control, that is fair. But the best description I can come up with for it is engineered serendipity. The engineering part is figuring out where I need to be, who I need to meet, making sure that I'm in the right place to have the right conversations that I'm going to find useful as I continue doing what I need to do. The serendipity part then kind of takes care of itself. Is those conversations evolve? You can't control them. You can't decide what they're going to be. You can't decide for somebody whether or not they're going to respond. But if you put yourself in enough places with the right kind of energy, you can give yourself a much, much stronger chance of success. Mentors won't come to you. You're going to have to go find them. You're going to have to find ways to engage with them, ways to get them on side. You're going to have to think broader than just product. I know it's nice to stay in our safe little product bubble away from salespeople and marketeers especially, but there are times when you're going to be looking at pricing strategies, you're going to be looking at go-to-market, you're going to be looking at commercials. So maybe the advice that you need is actually from somebody outside of product. Some of the smartest conversations I've had in the last couple of years have been with a bloke called Will McInnes, who happens to have been Chief Marketing Officer for a firm called Brandwatch, social marketing firm. Brilliant. Learned a huge amount from him, but not typically in the space where I would have gone looking. We just happened to run one another a couple of times, and I made the most of the opportunity to learn from somebody outside of my space. Repaid me tenfold. This one in the bottom left. This one's important. This is why we're here today. The more you share with other people, the more they will share with you. It is a two-way street. Now, there are at least 2 podcast hosts in the audience this evening. There are a number of people in the audience this evening who have organised ProductTank meetups of their own. There are a number of people in the audience this evening who have spoken on product stages in various places around the country, and in some cases, other countries too. And it's led them onto the Mind the Product stage, which then leads people to connect with them, build those networks, and gives places they can go to when they need advice. So don't be afraid. Tell a little of your story. And I often get asked by people, what story should I tell? I didn't build Facebook. I didn't build Spotify. I don't have a story to tell. Well, you do. And the format is real simple. We were doing this, and it wasn't going well. So we started doing this, then it got worse. We thought, shit! So we started doing this, and that's when it caught fire. Now we're doing this, and we think we're going in the right direction. Pretty much every product manager I've ever met has a story like that somewhere buried deep in their past. Those stories are learning moments. You can share them with others. You can show people that you are humble, you have humility, you're prepared to learn, and you are prepared to share your learnings with others. It goes a long way. And finally, be open to receiving help from unexpected sources. After running Mind the Product for the best part of a decade, one of my favourite talks still was on the London ProductTank stage in Holborn, probably about 6-7 years ago. He's a guy who'd been in product for just 2 years. You'd think, this guy can't really offer me that much help in the world of product. He's still pretty young in his game. Well, what he spoke about was, this is the stuff I wish I'd known before I get into product. It was a hilarious talk, tons of emoji, brilliant slide deck. The interesting bit for me was the feedback afterwards. I got feedback from 2 groups of people in the audience. The first group was obvious. It was exactly what you would expect. It was people who were new to product saying, thanks so much. That's all the stuff I wanted to say. I'm glad I'm not alone in feeling that. That was really helpful. I feel validated. Thank you. The other group was interesting. The other group was predominantly VPs and CPOs coming to me saying, I've got a bunch of junior people on my product team and I didn't know what they were worried about. Now I do. Now I know how to support them. Now I know how to help. You get help from unexpected sources if you're prepared to accept it. So, this product recruiter hybrid. Think about the different topics, fish where the fish are, and think about how you're going to catch their attention. Gib Biddle talks about this a fair bit. He calls it the personal advisory board. And to be honest, yeah, good enough. I'll take that. I think that's a good enough title to run with. But break it down. What are the different areas in which you might need help? What are the different areas in which you might need support? Some of it might be engaging with your engineering team. Some of it might be discovery or competitor analysis or go-to-market, whatever. We talk a lot more about moving firms from this traditional waterfall IT approach to more of an agile, product-led approach. That's cultural change. So maybe there are some people in HR or workforce management that perhaps you should be listening to a little bit more often. But break it down. What are the problems you're trying to solve? Finally, start with me. Feel free. I don't know a huge amount product, but I know pretty much every product manager on the planet at this point. So if there's an expert you're looking for, if there's content you're looking for, if there's an area where you feel overwhelmed by what you have on your plate, just drop me a line. I probably don't have the answer, but I probably know the people that do. I'm more than happy to point you in the right direction anytime you like. Finally, this clicker is insane. This is brilliant. We are all over the shop with this one. I think we may have stopped completely at this point. There was only one slide left, and it's a bonus slide which has nothing at all to do with mentoring, but everything to do with where the next generation of product managers are coming from. People ask me on a regular basis, there we go, where are we going to find the next generation of product managers? How do we go about hiring? What do we do? Every time I talk to product leaders about the personal attributes that make great product manager, relentless curiosity and stable resilience are the 2 that come through. This is a tough job, absolutely. You're going to have to pick yourselves up from failures again and again. You're going to have to say no and be in a tight spot again and again. You are going to have to remain constantly curious about what's going on and how you can improve it. From a professional perspective, you need to be able to talk to the engineering team day in, day out and get shit done. You also need to be able to empathize and understand customer pain. So here's the hack. Go talk to your engineers. Ask them who they know and respect on the customer success team. Because right there, you have a customer success person who cares enough about customer problems to understand it and take it to the engineering team. You also have a person who's not scared of talking to the engineers and trying to find solutions to customers' problems. Now, they may not know what a roadmap is, and they may not be able to tell the difference between that and a backlog. But you sure as hell have all of the attributes of a junior product manager right there waiting to go, and somebody that can be developed, somebody who's showing you the raw embryo of what great product people really look like. So I hope that's been useful. You're very welcome to connect with me afterwards. Feel free to throw questions at me. I'm splitting my time at the moment between a bunch of different projects, so responses might not be immediate, but I do get to them, I promise you. Now, I believe we're doing a Q&A after this, but we're going for a quick break beforehand. So if you want a drinks refresh, they're that way. The pizzas, you guys have absolutely lived up to expectations and demolished that pile. Well done. There is nothing but cardboard before me. And if you need the bathrooms, glass door on the right, go straight through. Bathrooms are out that way. We're back here in 5 for Q&A, and hopefully it was better without the echo. Thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. Okay, let me open up the slides. Perfect. We'll be starting in a sec. So if you could take your seats, come closer, you'll hear better. So that's a hint. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for putting your questions onto our Slido. There is a QR code, again, if you want to add additional questions, or you can always upvote the existing ones if you like them. So far, the most popular one is the one about killing the speaker, so that one is done now. So I'm going to talk about that one.
You want to hear us as well?
Okay, excellent. Are you ready for a rough round of Q&A? Excellent. The first one is for Debbie. And this one is about how do you go about finding time to research, think, apply, and then share ideas in Medium or LinkedIn or other forums to build your personal brand?
I've never done that intentionally. So I usually get inspirations for my day-to-day job. I think if I have to do like a separate research for creating content, I would never create one. So yeah, I actually get a lot of inspirations talking to other PMs, including the PMs that I manage, like in my previous role, and then the questions that they ask me, like, and the questions that my readers of like the previous articles asked me gave me the inspiration about my next articles, basically. And then in terms of researching the answer, that's the part that I have to dedicate more like specific time to do, and maybe that's why in the past 4 months now I haven't published any new article. But that's why I also chose Medium instead of newsletter, and you have this pressure to publish something once a week. I choose to write whenever I actually have something to say instead of just following a schedule. So yeah, I do that whenever I have the time, and I actually feel like I really need to get this out of my head. One more thing that I wanted to say about Medium is that they value really thought through content instead of, again, just churning content. So like if you look at my Medium profile, I have maybe like 10 articles in total. It's not huge at all. Like it's barely once a month. And I still get quite a lot of tractions because they value high quality content, and they could still recommend your articles even when it was like 5 months old or something.
Thanks, Debbie. James, Pippa, you're also quite active on LinkedIn. Do you have any tips for how to find time to post?
I think my main tip would actually align very much with what you just said about when you actually care. Turns out, giving a fuck really makes a difference. So if you're just writing for the sake of thinking that you need to write something, please don't. There's enough crap out there in the world, and with the way AI is going, there's just going to be more of it. So take the time to write when you care, when it's a thing that's bugged you, when you have an opinion. Being opinionated actually counts. It helps to start conversations. It helps helps people to think through things from a different perspective. That's great. Being opinionated, by the way, isn't the same as being arrogant. Being opinionated just means I've got a strong view about this. What do you all think? I could be wrong here. It's a great way to start conversations. It's a great way to grow that engagement, grow that personal brand, and just show people that you actually care about the topic. It matters.
I'm going to confess I absolutely hate posting on LinkedIn. Honestly, I have to really build myself up, and I read it and I think, oh God, I sound like an absolute wanker. I can't post that. And then I post it and then I hide for a while and I feel a bit sick, and then I think about deleting the whole thing. But ultimately what I have found is I take the point around, I post about stuff I care about, that is, I bang on about values all the time because I always come back to it. Is this important to me? Do I care about this? And do I think this is going to help someone else? And if it kind of passes that test, I go for it. And then I try and take the opinion that it's just an idea. It's out in the ether now, and hopefully it's taken in the spirit it was written. But yeah, not just posting for the sake of it, I think is probably a good one. And don't worry if you feel horrible afterwards. Find a friend who will like it for you. Maybe throw a few comments in.
If you feel horrible, there's always tea and biscuits. Don't worry, you'll get over it.
I always ask my ProductTank team to like my posts first, so that's totally fine. Give it a like. Excellent, thank you so much. There is a set of questions about change in the industry as a PM or changing from the B2B to B2C. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to go on that one. I have worked on both sides, and I really encourage people to try it all out and not to be put off if you've just done B2B and you want to get into B2C or vice versa. I think really looking at those transferable skills, like talking about those capabilities like I did earlier, some are going to be more prevalent in different industries than others. But I think it also comes into a bit about what you were saying, James, around reaching out to people, is knowing your story and the things you've learned and how you've gone about learning new stuff, really in that approach that you take. As when I'm hiring product managers, I care a lot more about the approach and the attitude of the person than whether they've worked in B2B or B2C. Do you have anything to add? Sorry, just forcing it on you.
I'm going to echo that last point on attitude. The teams that I've built over the years, I've very much gone to hire for attitude over aptitude every time. If you have the right attitude, if you love what we're trying to do and you're on board with that mission and you want to get there, you can learn pretty much anything you need to learn. And there's more online learning available now than there ever has been before. That stuff can be taught. Attitude, you got the wrong attitude, the wrong values, I'm not going to change that. Doesn't matter how much I want to, I'm not going to change that. So if you want to make the move from one vertical to another, or you want to move from B2C to B2B, then go for it. Figure out which skills you've got that are transferable, make a clear case around that, and make clear that you're open for that change. You're up for learning about the next thing. That's the challenge you're looking for. I don't see any reason why that should stand in your way, and I know a number of people in this room who very successfully made that change, not just once, but several times over. It's perfectly feasible.
Thank you so much. Our next question is about how to expand scope when you're at a small startup and don't have many resources, such a large engineering team or other help that you could get.
Think about community. Mind the Product started as a very, very small operation in London. The first meetup was literally 20 people in the back room of a pub in Leicester Square called the Ruby Blue. I wasn't there that evening, but Jana was. She's around here somewhere. Literally 20 people. And as it grew over the years, the first 5 years, nobody was paid a salary. Everybody else had a job. It was just a side hustle. It was an evening hustle. It was a thing that we did. It was a thing where we helped other people find value. Other people stepped forward and said, hey, this is a cool thing. How can we help? How can we get involved in that? Professional teams are no different. You can find people that will help out in different things along the way. But it's all about thinking about who you work with, how you can do a thing that's exciting for other people to be involved in. Can you communicate your passion, why this is important, why this is interesting, what they might learn along the way? It's astonishing where you can find resources if you have your eyes wide open. More often than not, I see eyes shut is the situation. I want to do this. I don't have an engineer. We're screwed. I mean, come on, just look a little bit deeper. There are multiple ways of skinning that problem.
I think to build on that as well, if you are a PM in a startup, I used to be, like my smallest startup, the PM, the product and tech team was only, I think, 12. So we have about 10 engineers and 2 PMs, and we didn't have any much resources to do whatever we wanted. But there are ways you can expand your scope, right? You can try to solve problems not using engineering. So even like helping the operations team optimize their spreadsheet, for example, as a stopgap solution can also already like help you to look like you are being helpful beyond just your main responsibility. So there are ways you can do that. I used to be not officially seconded, but I used to join like other team meetings, like the community team in my previous company, the operations team, just to help them out with their problems. And I still solve problems like the same way a product manager would, which is like really understanding the problem, understanding what they're trying to do, what are the success metrics, but the solution doesn't have to be within the code, basically.
No,
The next one is my favorite. How do you choose your niche as a PM? With the whole hype around AI now, and with the recent hype about cryptocurrencies last year, for example, how do you know what's gonna go and what will stay, and which is your niche?
I'm going to go with the same answer that I gave for the writing topic. Pick something you care about. This is a tough job. It's a rewarding job, but it's a tough job. It's going to beat you up from time to time, and the next day you're going to have to get back up and go again. So choose something you care about. Worry less about what the market's going to do in future, because as we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, it's going to throw you a curveball from time to time, and there's absolutely not one damn thing you can do about that. So you might as well choose something you really care about and get really damn good at it. That's how I choose a niche.
Oh, yeah, I can add a tiny bit to that, which is, I think, this is questions I ask all the time. What does niche really mean? Like, I think we can think about niche as an industry, or we can think of niche as a way of working. So I'm going to use that V word again, values. If I think about values, I really care about people and empathy and being vulnerable and helping people feel safe and secure in the work they do. And so I look for roles that allow me to do that. And that's kind of guided me through my career so far. So look for what you care about, look to who you are, and then try and connect the dots between the two.
Thank you. The next question is about how important is working at big tech companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon in order to progress in your career? If you have any thoughts about that, I'm sure Debbie does.
It definitely opens doors for you, like, not gonna lie. So if somebody offers you a job at the big tech, definitely don't say no, I would say. And there are a lot of things that you can learn in big companies, such as like the high level product principles. However, I would say that as an individual PMs, actually you have less chance of being like a full stack PM in a big company. I mentored a PM at Facebook, actually, and they had no idea how to do user research because somebody else is doing that. Not only that they don't know how to do it, but they also don't know, like, they don't even know the principles, like what makes a good user research, what kind of problem should we go for example. So they had no idea about all of those because everything was done for them. So your scope is actually very small. So yeah, if you work in a startup, definitely you have the opportunity to do more end-to-end. But yeah, big tech names open doors for you, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Cool, thank you. We're going to take a couple of last questions, so if you have any, please do submit them. So the next one is about, the host of information, all of the best practices, courses, certifications, and everything that exists out of there. How to find the right thing in this whole chaos of all of the available resources out there.
Now, this is why you're going to want a personal advisory board of awesome people that you can call on to take their advice. There is more learning out there than ever before. There are more online platforms, more events, more workshops, more independent coaches, trainers, mentors than there ever have been in the world of product. That's a great thing. There's an awesome amount of stuff to learn from, but it's also real tough for you to pick which are worth your dollar, which are worth your time. And that's the one where I'd say you actually need to call on other people's expertise. Go out there, figure out the luminaries in the industry and ask them, what do they recommend? What do they rate? And if you can say, actually, I really respect so-and-so in that area, great. Where have they been involved in the past? What have they lent themselves to? That'll also shine a light on things that are worth your time and things perhaps less so. Look to the people in your industry to guide you. There are experts out there who've been doing this a damn sight longer than any of us. So let's figure out what they think is worthy and at least take some hint from that.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I add something? I have a confession. I've never done any PM courses out there. I read only like the most famous PM books. I wasn't very impressed. There are lots of content around product management, and what I have found more valuable is actually going back to the first principle. So product management is just a balancing act of business, users, and technology. And I would argue that if you want to be a better product manager, then you should learn business. So read business books, follow business leaders. You should learn psychology of the users and technology instead of reading again and again about how to manage your product backlog, how to write a better user story, or how to do better customer interviews. So like back to the first principles and like learn those fields better than just the umbrella of product management, I would say.
I just want to agree very hardly with
I'll
that
say,
one.
if I could answer, could I answer that question again? What she said.
That's brilliant. Thank you, everyone. James, question for you.
Sure.
Can you give people advice on how to network at ProductTank events?
Just number one, be open. Be open to the conversations. There are people everywhere here this evening that are having conversations left, right, and centre. Be friendly, be approachable, and have a clear idea on when you are networking, what do you think is interesting about you? What is worth sharing? What have you learned recently that you can share with other people so you're putting something out there? But likewise, don't just immediately march into a conversation and start spouting forth your latest, greatest story. Listen a little first, and there will be certain conversations around this room that are interesting. So pick which conversations you want to choose to involve yourselves in. There are a variety of companies represented here, large to small, early stage to late stage, managing legacy products and killing zombie features, right through to, shit, we haven't even launched yet, we don't know what's next. Pick the appropriate groups, the appropriate conversations, and then figure out what you can add to the conversation that adds value. These things, first and foremost, were always about getting together with other people in product and sharing what we've learned. I remember one of the earliest product events that I went to. I've been to a couple of events, and I think it's probably the third Product Tank I went to. I saw a lady that I hadn't seen before, and I said, I think you're new here. I'm relatively new. Is it your first time at Product Tank? And she said, yeah, it's my first Product Tank event. I said, great. How was it? What did you think? And she said, oh my God, it was like professional therapy. My CEO is insane and my engineers all hate me. I found my people. Be friendly, be approachable, share the things you're working on, share the things you're learning. It's really not much more complicated than that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, James. This is amazing. We're going to take our last question, and this one is going to be about what are the 3 things that would convince you to mentor someone?
Okay.
Want to go first?
First and foremost, I would choose somebody in a different area to me. Because that way, by the questions that you ask, the questions that you're bringing to the table, by working through those with you, I'm going to learn something too. Mentoring should be a two-way street. I should learn something, and so should you. We built an amazing training business as part of the Mind the Product growth over the years. And one of the reasons why people chose to become a Mind the Product trainer was because they felt that becoming a trainer would make them a better product leader. Now, for me, the same is true of mentoring. If I'm going to mentor somebody, what am I going to learn from you? Now, hopefully, if you're in a different sector or a different kind of business to me, you're going to open my eyes. You're going to change some of my preconceptions. That's what will convince me more than anything else, is somebody bringing something new to the table, something that I have no awareness of at all.
You go first. 3 whole things.
Yeah, I only got as far as the 1, but, I hope it was good.
I'll answer 1 as well. I think somebody who shows that, who don't ask stupid questions, basically. I hate it when somebody asks me really basic questions, like how do you get into product management, for example. Just something that doesn't show that you've done your homework, you've done your research. So I like it when people ask me really sharp questions. And yeah, just show willingness to learn. I hope it doesn't become an invitation, but I actually do mentor quite a lot of people. I don't have more time as you talk about. And yeah, I'll open up the free mentoring slots at some point in the future. I'm still adjusting to my new job at Shopify. But yeah, the people that I met during the free mentoring session, I would ask myself, like, do I want to mentor this person again? Like, do I want to talk to this person again? And usually the difference between the people that I said yes to versus I said no to is how receptive they are in like having an actual conversation about what they ask about. So it's not just a one-way question where they said, oh, but I'm being very defensive. I think somebody you talk about being defensive when you're learning something, versus the opposite, which is they just keep asking me questions without showing that they've done their homework, basically.
Okay, I'm ready. Actually, someone here reached out to me, and we had a mentoring session. And the thing that makes me want to help someone is understanding their story. So I love learning about people. I love it when someone's willing to be open, and if someone asks me to coach them or mentor them, they can pretty much be sure that I'm going to ask them about their life, not just about product, but I want to know who you are, what's brought you to this point, so that I can understand the type of person you're going to be, and then go from there. So I really look for people who are sort of reaching out with, sounds cheesy, but open heart and open mind, and willing to share their story in a very vulnerable and candid way. And I will reciprocate.
One last point I meant to pick up earlier when I was talking and missed it completely. Jason Knight, where are you, fella? There he is. Okay, Jason's back there. He makes a ridiculous amount of product management memes, which are frankly hilarious. He runs a great podcast. But what you probably don't know is that he also cares deeply about this mentorship problem, and he's building something at the moment to try and solve that. Key principle behind it is trying to connect people to multiple different mentors because the product role is so broad. It's early stages. He needs feedback, preferably brutal. So please do, go tear it apart and tell him what you think. Let him know. Hopefully he can build something that's actually truly awesome and helps us solve some of this problem for a few more product people in future.
That was an unpaid promotion.
That was an unpaid promotion, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you all for coming. Thanks to Pando for sponsoring the event, and thanks to JCC for hosting us all here. And we hope to see you all next month. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's great.